Hi guys, this is Andre Goya, and I'm bringing you the second lesson of the Simple Interactive 3D Room tutorial series for Academy Class blog. Today we're going to be picking up exactly where we left off in the first lesson. We're going to be doing a bit of cleanup to begin with, so we're going to go through our layers, clean those up. Then we're going to refine our wall shape a bit because there's a few things that I ignored in the plan when first creating the main shape of the walls. So there's a bit of refining to do there. And then we're going to create the missing wardrobe interior wall, which I was talking about in the previous lesson. It isn't in the plans, but I know it's there, so we're going to create it. And this way we can explore like how you go about creating something that isn't in the plan necessarily. Then we're going to be adding some detailing such as baseboard and window board. That is the only things. Those are the only things we need to add in this case. And finally, we'll be creating the windows and doors. And I am going to be showing you both the AEC methods and just plain old box modeling. I'll show the differences between the two and why I prefer one against the other. So without further ado, let's jump back into 3D Studio Max. You can see our scene exactly how we left it. So if I just drag this here to the other window so I can follow it. First thing to do is clean up our layers. So if we open up our layer tab here, you can see that we still have a bit of these junk layers that have come through from AutoCAD. Let's just delete them. Select one, hold shift and click to select another one, and it will select everything in between as well. And just click here to delete the highlighted empty layers. So this will only work if the layers are empty. If I select a layer that actually has objects on it and I try to delete it, it won't let me. So that's just a little safeguard there. So we delete all of these. Now we still have our plans layer, which has our reference object on it as well. I don't mind. I think that can stay on the plan layer because we do use that purely for height and depth information, stuff like that. So it's plan related. Let's just rename. Oh, we can't rename this because it is the default one. Is that the reason? Let's see here. Yeah, we can rename this one. So we'll just call this geometry. Here we go, and I'll just select everything in here. You can, if you select multiple layers with shift and then you just right click on them, it just selects one layer. But if you select multiple and then hold control and right click on them, it does keep all of that selection. So I'm gonna select all of these objects in the scene, although it looks as if it did select just the one I was holding control over. So I guess we can't do that, guys. So just select this, and I'll select the other one in the scene. There we go. Boom, boom. And now go to geometry and add selected objects. Here we go. What's left in there is the floor, our shape 0, 1. So, and this highlights why we should name objects as well. That's the next thing I'm going to be doing. So if I just select this floor, go here and go add selected object. Here we go. Now everything is in our geometry layer. This is selected now as our in-use layer. And now let's just go in and rename these objects. I'll still have a bit of junk here. Oh no, that's the actual plan line. That's fine. So this shall become our floor. These are our walls. We'll call them exterior walls. And these will be our interior walls. It is very important to rename these. I'm curious if they update here. Yeah, there we go. Just because this is a very simple scene. Imagine if you had a larger scene, lots of rooms, lots of floors, then naming everything correctly is paramount, I believe. Because otherwise you are going to have a hard time just finding stuff and selecting it. Okay, so that's our little cleanup done there. Everything is named. It's on the correct layer. Cool. So now let's go ahead and just refine this wall shape, because if we have a look at the plans, we missed this bit here, which is a little indent for the pipe to go through, and we have one here as well. So let's just quickly create those. we can stick to our top view here. I'll just maximize this so you can see it. So if we go into, we select our object, it is already in Editable Poly. We go to Edge Mode so we can start editing. Now if I click and drag, I'm gonna select all of the edges here. So this is the top edge and the bottom edge and any edge in between selected. So with all of those selected, I know they're parallel, so there's not gonna be any problems. I can hit connect, and this will create a vertical edge here connecting all of the horizontal ones we had just selected. To verify this, if I go to Vertex Mode, and I also do this by clicking one, you can toggle between these two by hitting the numbers on your keyboard by default. So if I go 2, that's edge mode, 3, border mode, etc. But now if I hop into 1, Vertex Mode, we can see the vertices for the edge that we've just created here. So we can just drag this here for now. So remember our using snap from the previous lesson, we're using snap just to drag this in place. Hop to edge mode, press 2, select these edges, do the same thing, hit connect, hit 1. It is actually created in place. This is right in the middle of these edges, so that's perfect. So now all we need to do is just drag this corner out. So select all those vertices, drag them out with snap, with grabbing both handles. There we go, we just dragged it in place. So now we've created this. Oh, this isn't exactly in place. Oh, how unfortunate. There we go. And we do the same over here. Select, connect, hit 1, find our vertices, drag this guy over here. Where'd that one go? There it is. Drag this guy over here. And there. And that appears to be the last of that. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I think we have created, yeah. Spot a little mistake here. The actual door for the actual hole for the door is covering the frame, so it should start here. So let's just drag these guys here and here. As you've noticed, I am completely ignoring this installation layer. I mean, we could just make our walls thicker. I don't think it really matters for what we're doing now. Obviously, if you want to be 100% precise, you would just drag this. So what I would do is I would select these with snap enable. I would actually click on this vertex and just drag it to here, and then select all these guys, click on the x-axis so we can select the x-axis. We can translate along the x-axis and drag this guy here, and you can see how we would have to move all of these vertices around and stuff. So I'm not going to do that for now, it's outside the scope of this lesson. Now let's create the missing wall that's here. I mean, it's quite easy to visualize where this missing wardrobe is going to be. It will be exactly from here to here. So let's just go ahead and create it. We're gonna make the walls the same thickness as our interior walls. So should we just grab this geometry or create a new one? I think we can just create a new one. Jump back into AutoCAD and remeasure that. That's 100 millimeters. There we go. So I think we can start off with just a simple box here. And go give it some height. So if we make this 100 by 100, and now let's see what our interior wall height was. 2,400. There we go. 2,400. Oh, sorry, I just edited the there we go. Cool. Let's toggle to get back to seeing all 4 viewports. And now we can just drag this guy in place. So if we match him with the corner over here, I think that's all we need. And now convert this to an Editable Poly, grab the vertices, go to Vertex Mode, grab the vertices, and just drag them all the way over to the other side. There we go, up to that point. And now we'll need to create a gap, and the gap should be the same width as our standard doors. All of these use the same measurements. Let's see if we can get that from AutoCAD. So jumping back into our plans. How wide is the door? It doesn't tell us, so I'll double click in here just to access this drawing, click our measurement tool, and just get a quick measurement. 896. Actually, I need the gap without the frame. So in this case, we're measuring from here to here. It's 1000 exactly. There we go. So back into 3D Studio Max. Let's just grab our reference object here and make it 1000 by 1000. And I think the height, where's this door cap that we created before? Is exactly this, isn't it? Yeah, it fits in there perfectly, so we can keep it this height. So one thing we can do is just actually align this in here where we want our door to be. So let's say there, we can just align it to, if we want it exactly in the middle, we can click the align tool with this object selected. Now we click on the object that we want to align it to, and if we click to take the center of the current object and align it with the center of the other object as opposed to the pivot point, because the pivot was here, so it was aligning it to here. Not on the z-axis, just on x and y, and there you go, and that's aligned it for us perfectly. Now one way we can go about creating the hole here for the door to go in is just with selecting edges. Let's isolate these two objects. I was already in isolation mode. There we go. So with these two objects isolated, I can just create edges with connect, drag them in, and then with snap, do that for the vertical ones as well. Delete the faces and then just bridge those. Another way I could do it is to actually, just on the y-axis please, just snap this to here, delete the back face, just because we're going to be making cuts on this face, and then we're just going to copy this face to the other. So with our snap enabled again, click just to cut on our geometry. So there's one cut, there's the other cut, and our final cut is here. Cool. And the reason I went from the corners is because you can't, in 3D Studio Max and 3D packages in general, you can't have faces just floating. They need to be connected to an edge. In this case it's fine because we went all the way to the bottom, so it was still connected to this edge, and I am talking about this face, the newly created face. If you don't do this, it will do it automatically for you, and depending on how you want to refine the mesh later, it might cause problems for you if it's in the wrong place. Now later I know that I will want to chamfer these edges, and for them to chamfer properly, I should have these edges in place just to tell it where the weights are, so it will follow this edge when it's chamfering the corner as well. Otherwise we'll get like some nasty distortions when trying to do that. So let's just, for now, let's just delete this face, select these other guys, and drag them over here. Still to element, it's not a new object. And now we can actually just isolate this while we're working on it, and drag these guys in place. Here we go. Now these faces, I believe, are flipped because obviously they're facing this way, and there's no information for them this way. So if we just press flip, yeah, there we go, they become brighter, and that's just letting us know that they are facing the right direction now. The other thing that we'll need to do is I forgot to make cuts here, so we can just quickly do that now. Missed that one. You can press F3, just toggle wireframe mode, and that will help you out quite a bit. There we go. So now going to polygon mode, delete this. But because we just copied this face, these vertices are actually not connected. See? So good practice is just select everything, or you can select just the vertices you want, but it's quicker, just select everything and just weld them. Just go 0.1 millimeter threshold, and we can see that it will be 16 vertices after we weld, so that means that they are welding, so that's fine, that's exactly what we need. And now we're left with these gaps in here, which we will use the bridge method to fill in. So here we go, bridge those. bridge those. A quick little tip while selecting faces and working on them is that sometimes if I have the transform gizmo up, I'll try to select something and then I'll end up moving it. So what you can do is actually press Q on your keyboard, or just press here, and that will enable the select object. So that will hide all your gizmos, and you can select and drag, and you won't risk moving anything. So there you go. That was done. Again, using the cut method it was just like a different way of doing it. I wanted to show you another method. I'm not sure whether that was quicker or not. It probably wasn't, but it's done now. So there we go. Let's just make sure we've added it. Let's add this now on the same layer as our. It is on the same layer as our geometry. So we might do an interior walls layer later, but for now that's in place. So that's done with. Now let's create a bit of detailing. So one thing that we want to do is the baseboard, which the baseboard is a little board that follows the walls where the walls meet the floor, just to cover that area. The quickest way to do it is probably using a section. So if we just hide our plans for now, just because we don't need them, so hide that layer completely. If we go to our create panel here, and we go to shapes, under splines you have section. And what section does, if you just create it onto the scene, doesn't matter where necessarily, and drag it over, it will create a spline with everything that this section plane intersects. So you can see that it creates a spline all the way along our walls and with anything that it touches. And that is a very, very, very quick way for us to create our baseboard. So if we just have it here, that looks right. If we go to modify, with our section selected, we can now click create shape. And now we'll ask us to name. Let's just name it now, baseboard. And that's it, that's created. We can now delete our section because our section is still live. But this shape has been created. So if we isolate this now, the reason I double click this is because I keep forgetting to go out of isolate mode. Sometimes I will isolate an object and then just go on hide all, and that still shows your objects, but it doesn't take you out of isolation mode. So that's just me forgetting to click this. So we go. Well, all we want is this interior line, because that's where our baseboard will be. So we won't have a baseboard in the bathroom, I believe, so we don't need this. We can just delete this. This is where the door frame will be, so we won't need a baseboard here. So just quickly delete these. We don't care for a baseboard inside of our wardrobe area here. We might leave this. Actually, let's not leave it because it doesn't. No, let's leave it. Let's leave it. I was thinking to save some geometry for the scene because again we are exporting this into Unity and every bit of geometry counts really. But I think I will want to have the ability to open the door to the wardrobe. So if we open the door, we're gonna be able to see inside, and it'd be nice to see a baseboard inside there. And that's it. Let's see if we missed anything. No, that's about it. Let's clean up any vertices that we're not going to want. So this. That appears to be all the stray vertices. Yep, that looks fine. Obviously, this is not one continuous path. These are separate bits, but that's fine. That shouldn't be too big of a problem. But actually, this one can be connected here. So if we just select, well, I click and drag to select all the vertices that are in there. Click fuse to make sure they're on top of each other, and then click weld, and that should weld that. And there we go. They're welded now. So now if I select the spline, it will select all of them. I think I'm happy with this. We might even create the baseboards separately, so there'll be the exterior wall baseboard, excuse me, and then the interior wall baseboard. And I think, yeah, I think that should be fine. So let's jump back into all of our viewports. Let's untoggle isolate. And I think the quickest way to create that is just with doing the outline again and extruding. So let's see first how outline behaves. Right, the immediate problem with that is that here it creates the baseboard on the inside, so we want it on the outside. So actually we didn't need to attach this. Okay, so I will just quickly undo what I did. I will select this segment and then click detach segment. We'll detach it as a separate shape for now, which is fine because we can always have our shape selected again, and we just find attach here, and if we hover over it, there we go, it was hidden in there, and now we've reattached it, but it will be separate, so those vertices are no longer tied together. There we go. I could have just selected the vertex and went break. It's just another way of doing it. So for this shape, we want it to outline to come on the inside, and for these shapes we want it to be on the outside. So bearing that in mind, it'll be easier just to isolate these again, just so we can see exactly what's happening. Select our shape here and start outlining. I think we're gonna do about 20 millimeters. That's 2 centimeters. That sounds about right. Yeah. So let's do 20 millimeters. It looked right in the viewport as well. So that's 20 millimeters. Now let's select these ones, and hopefully they will outline on the same side. Let's quickly see. Yes, they do. Okay, so that's fine for us. So we'll do this. That was -20 in this case. -20 millimeters. Here we go. Yep. And one thing we can do for our geometry, that's one shape. Yeah, that's one shape. Obviously, when we extrude, this will be a separate block than this one. So let's just get these vertices here. All of the corners have been created as Bezier vertices, which is fine. It's the normal behavior, but we just need these as corners. So right click, select all the vertices, right click on them and select them as corners, so that hides those little handles, so they won't, we won't create any bend shapes basically. So let's drag these in place. Oh, I thought I had selected just on the x-axis. I think, yes, I think splines behave a bit differently than actual geometry when clicking on the axis and dragging them. It doesn't always work. Okay, so now we should be able to just extrude this. And we can, everything looks fine. That's absolutely lovely. Okay, so if we get out of isolation mode, we can see this is not at the base. So now I have clicked on Y, and because this is geometry, yeah, it doesn't snap. So there's something I've learned as well today, is that geometry sticks to the axis when you try to snap it, but when you're in spline edit mode, it doesn't. You will go to all over the axis. So let's convert this to an editable poly now. We could have cloned it just to keep the shape information if we needed to do more with it, to edit it later and stuff like that, but there's no need. I don't think we'll come back to this anytime soon. So what height should we give this? We could have handled this in the extrude, but we can just do it here now by setting a Y. So if we give this about 5 centimeters, yeah, that looks about right. Let's go with 7 centimeters, so that'll be 70 millimeters. That's our baseboard. Click here to zoom in on the object, to focus on the object, and then we can zoom in on it a bit more. Actually, it does look a bit thick, just relative to everything else. So I think if we undo, we need to undo the outlines as well. Let's see if we still have that information in there. No, that's not a possibility. Okay, looks like, well, we could just redo it, but I'll leave it as that for now. I think we might be able to fit it out later, just in a later tutorial. I won't do it now just because we're running a bit over time. So we'll leave it like that for now. That's our basic baseboard in place. Okay, that's absolutely fine. Now we need to create our window board. So first, let's jump back into the plans and check out which windows actually do have a window board. Now these three here, they do. They have a big window board here. The bathroom one does not, so we don't need to worry about that one there. And this is very simple. We can do this just by creating a box, really. So if we unhide the plans, if we go to create object primitives and click on the box, with snap enabled, let's just create it from here all the way to here. Now we don't have a precise thickness, but we can get that from the plans. Okay, so still in our model view here. So if we just click on the model button, that will snap out of it. I've moved this a bit, but it's fine. So we should be able to see the window board here, and we do. Let's get a thickness. So if we go to home linear measurement, it's 25 millimeters. So there we go. So here we just need a height of 25 millimeters, and that is our window board in place. I will probably have to move the edge of this a bit inwards, because then but the window can sit on it, so that's fine. So that's that in place. We can further refine this just by chamfering it. Especially when doing renderings, I would always recommend chamfering the edges. So chamfering means you take one hard edge and it splits it into 2, 3, 4, however much you want, and it relaxes it at the same time. So it gives you a softer edge. Sometimes you can use chamfer just to split, just to create 2 hard edges. It depends on what effect you want to achieve. So let me just give you a quick example of that. If we select that edge, and if we hit chamfer, you can see what it does. It just creates 2 edges of this one, and these 2 translate on the edge that is closest to them. So as you can see, the left one follows the left edge, the right one follows the right edge, because that's what they're connected to. And this is just doing one edge segment, so it takes one edge and it creates 2. If we hit 2, it adds 1 in between, 3, 4, and you can see how it creates this with tensions in between, so that gives a smooth curve here. So you can use this just to create a smooth surface like that, or just a normal chamfer. Because we are going to be taking this into Unity, we can't go too crazy with this. At least I wouldn't recommend. But especially, and it might be unnecessary on the actual, what we would call level geometry in this case, which it would be the exterior walls and floor, etc. But because this is an object, as this is separate from the confining walls, and it's probably going to have a material with a specular on it, I would chamfer the edges just a tiny bit. So if I convert this to an Editable Poly, and in this case, because it's a simple box, we can just select all of the edges, except the ones on the outside, because we actually won't be seeing these, so we don't need to chamfer them. And again, that will save us a bit of geometry. And if we hit chamfer, you can right click on this to set it to 0, and then just move it a tiny bit, and that's all we need, really. Depends on how hard we want this edge to be, but a bit softer like this should be fine. And if we apply a smooth modifier to it, now an auto smooth would be fine here. Just smooth it all out, and that's fine. So now when we'll get this into Unity, and you can even straight away see in 3D Studio Max, we get a nice specular here on this edge, as opposed to it looking like a razor edge. You know, in real life, you don't really see edges that are that sharp. So that's what we've done there. Okay, and the last little bit to do is just create windows and doors. And one quick way to do that in 3D Studio Max is with creating AEC objects. AEC objects are architectural objects. They're considered like almost as prefabs. You can select your doors here. They have windows, doors. They have even walls, railings, Foliage is interesting, so you can drag a few plants in there from a pre-existing library, windows, stairs, etc. So let's have a look at doors first. If you select door, and in this case we went for a pivot door because that's what we want. If we you can just drag this in the viewport and create it basically. So that's what we'll do. Create a door. This is on the wrong axis right now. If we are to create the door here, so let's say we want to drag it width first, then height and depth. No, we want width, depth, and then height. So yeah, that's fine. With our snap enable, we'll start from the interior of the frame just because it creates its own frame. So this would be the width, this will be the depth, and we'll give it the height up to there. And now the height, I think, has gone a bit over. Yeah, the frame is going over, so we'll need to subtract a bit from the total height. So let's see, it looks like 55 is what it wants. Or is it 50? 50. Okay, that's perfect. And we can see we already have our door in place, and that was very easy to do. Create almost instantly, just a matter of, you know, dragging it a bit better in place. But the door is there. And if we look from our top view, it matches the frame that was already there perfectly. And if we drag it in place, there we go. That it's perfectly in there, and it's job done. My only problem with this is that depending on what you want to do with it, if you don't care about this door and you're not going to be editing it at all, then it's just fine to do it like this, and it's a very quick way of doing it. But I'm not happy with the geometry that this process creates. So if we quickly isolate this door, and if we just hit F4 to switch on edge mode so you can see the edges over the mesh. If we quickly convert this to an Editable Poly, we can see no problems. All of these objects are separate objects, which isn't necessarily a big problem. But let's say we wanted to chamfer this like we just did. If we were to select these edges, because they are separate, they don't intersect, they're not connected, you see the type of problem that we would run into. They chamfer independently. You say fine, but then what we can do is just move this up and it will look okay. But yeah, then we have to do a lot of cleanup. So we need to create all the missing edges, cut them, connect all the vertices, drag everything in place, etc., etc. So just bearing that in mind, it might actually be quicker to just create your own door to achieve this result. Because especially in Unity, we won't use any of the functions that come with this, because it's nice. Yeah, you can open the door, you can flip the hinge, etc. But we don't need any of this. We need the geometry to be correct so that we can chamfer, we can edit, we can UV unwrap it easier, which is something that we will definitely need to do for Unity. So if we just get out of isolation mode and delete this door, what is the quickest way that we can replicate that result with correct geometry? I think if we just create a block and then inset the faces, it's very similar to what we did here. I mean, it's basically almost exactly this. We can even just drag this in place and modify it. I think actually let's do that. So with this in place, let's just copy it, and now this will become our door. And I'm just quickly going to go to hierarchy and click Effect Pivot Only, and then center the pivot to the object. Hit E to click the rotate. Angle Snap tool basically allows us to rotate objects while snapping to angle values. So it's not going to be 86.73, it's going to be 85, 90, etc. So that's what we need to go for 90 easily. Let's just use one reference point, so we'll snap this to here. And let's just isolate these two objects. This is already an Editable Poly. Just worked on it. So now let's just start dragging these vertices in place with S selected. Here we go. And we already have our window frame. I don't think this is exactly in the right place. Yeah, there we go. Now it is. We want this bit here to have the same width, which is 25 millimeters. These two don't appear to have the same width. Oh, here we go. That's the problem. So if we select these vertices, we'll move them up to make sure we have exactly 25. So to be precise, we could just eyeball it, but what we can do is move it so that it is in line to what we want to offset it against, which would be the top edge. So now that these points are in line with top edge, we can hit F12 again just to pop up our transform type ins. And on the z-axis, we want it to go -25. So -25. And that doesn't appear to be correct. Oh, because this isn't 25, of course. This will be more like 50, it looks. So let's just quickly find out. Double clicking here, go to linear. 52. There we go. So -52 is what we need. And that looks correct. And we already have our frame. And now to create a door, we'll want our actual door. This is the door frame. We want our actual door to be a separate object. So when we export it into Unity, we'll be able to just open it up and close it. So what's a quick way to do this? Oh, one thing to bear in mind is that also when we export to Unity, it needs to be unwrapped. Now, for the sake of saving texture memory, we probably want the door frame and door to be unwrapped in the same UV space. So for now, it would be easier if they actually were the same object, and we would separate them after we do the unwrapping. So let's just let's clone these two faces, because these are the two faces that sort of capture where our door needs to be. And we can just bridge these. Yeah, there we go. Now this edge, I believe, is flipped now because it's facing the wrong way. It was facing inward. So if we flip, it should turn lighter. No, I was selecting the wrong face. Okay, when we bridged, okay, I see what's happening here. It actually remove these faces. So we can just quickly cap these. And now we'll have our door object, which is made to measure exactly. So let's just drag it in there. We probably want this to be slightly thinner. Let's go with precise measurements in here. So how thick do we want our door to be? If the frame is 52, well, actually we want our door to be 52 as well, because this looks to be longer than actual 52. It has more depth. So on the x-axis, 52. Yeah, that looks about right. I could probably go a bit thicker than. Oh, sorry, my snap is still on. A bit thicker than that. So that's plus 14. So let's just do a 65, I guess. Yeah, that looks about fine. We're okay in here. We can shrink it a tiny bit to mimic the gaps, but I think we can achieve the same effect when we'll be chamfering it, because obviously there will be a tiny gap between the frame and the door. We have all the surfaces in place. I guess we can do a little bevel on the door, especially that it is a main access door, so it's not like an interior door. You would have a little bevel on it usually. So we can just select the other faces and hit inset. So let's inset these for 100. It's fine. And if we hit our scale tool, we can scale these. It doesn't have to be a precise measurement here. This is purely for aesthetics. So let's go into vertex mode, and I'll drag these a bit up some more. There we go. And now we can simply bevel these. that's a bit much. So first let's extrude it. There would be extruded inwards, about -5 millimeters, let's say, and beveled for the same amounts, directly proportionate. And that looks fine. And now you can see that our geometry is correct. So even if let's just move this out of here for now. Now if we want to chamfer the edges, we can do that a bit more easily. The quickest way to select these edges would be just to literally click on them and select them now, because otherwise we'll be selecting everything that is inside the door as well, and then we'll actually spend more time deselecting those. And now we just chamfer these quickly. I'll use 2 millimeters probably. Hit face. Yeah, that looks about right. So now when we drag this back in place, oh, I've gone out of the edit mode there. Oops. I think I will use this vertex. It's a bit tricky. We have to do it in the perspective viewport now, because it won't allow me to click through that. So, are we on the right axis? I don't believe we are in this viewport. Oh no, we are. So, here we go. Now, because we beveled that, we get the little gap in here as well. Okay. Hopefully, you guys can see that through the recording. So that looks to be fine, but we might have a little error. No, let me just have a quick look. No, that's fine actually. Or I feel like this one should be like that. So let's identify that little vertex. See what happened. The problem is here. Okay. Because the amount that vertex travels when we chamfer is also dependent on these edges that are connected to it, because these apply some weight to it. Obviously, this edge is shorter than this edge, so this vertex has traveled more than this vertex. But that's quite easy to fix. We just drag it in place here, and we can even use snap to make sure it's exact. I find that I have to do some of these fixes quite a lot when using chamfer if you want to get exact precise results. Sorry. But still a little less than we would have had to do had we used the ASC extended door. So there we go. Our door is in. Is one object. Let's unhide everything. Oh, made it a bit too tall. That's fine. We can drag these in place. So that looks about right. Yeah. And in this case, we'll need this guy to go here as well. Let's copy it as an instance so far, so that when we unwrap it later, all of the work that we do on one instance of it happens on the other one as well. So we won't have to unwrap it 3 or 4 times, etc. And that's the same for any work that we do on it, really, if we decide to edit the geometry somewhere or anything like that. We want it facing this way, yeah. For the wardrobe, pivot is a bit weird. Let's just recenter this, actually, center to object. We can do it on both axes now and just drag this in place. And finally in here. Hopefully this is at a precise 45-degree angle. And it looks like it is. So that's fine. It looks like the frames are actually a bit, oh come on, thinner. we could replicate that, but just because these are instanced now, it would happen on all of them. So what I would do is I would actually unwrap it, then make all of these individual objects, and then do that, and then adjust it so that it fits perfectly according to the plan. Oh, and we see we obviously need to take care of this little gap here. So if we select our inner walls, go to edge mode, select all the edges, click connect to connect them, and just drag them in place. And now we can simply select these two faces and bridge them, and that's that sorted. So that's starting to look good already. Last thing to do is just get the windows in, which I will do quickly. Same stuff, we can do an AC extend window, same problems. We'll have problems with our geometry, so I would rather just create the windows. Let's have a quick look and see. We can see we have this frame which appears to be the same thickness. So quickest way to do it is actually drag a door in here. There's one difference though, the windows will have a bottom frame as well. That's fine. Let's delete the door object, the door element, sorry. I'll rename this window. Let's create that bottom frame. You see these edges, they're not planar because they've been created sort of as an in-between between this edge, which is planar, and this one, which is at a 45-degree angle. So these would be at like 22.5 or something. So one quick way to do that is just with the edges selected, just click, not make planar, but actually make planar on the z-axis. There we go. And to make sure they are precise, which is 52 actually millimeters from the bottom, just move them to the bottom, then hit F12, then move them 52 millimeters up on the z-axis. And that looks about right. Click here, select these two faces and bridge them. Yeah. Here we go. So let's move that in place on these two axes. Go into Vertex Mode. Okay. Big mistake. Hopefully I can undo. Can I undo all of this? No, I cannot. I forgot that these were obviously instanced, so any change that I've done to this one has happened to the other ones as well. So one quick way to fix this is hopefully we will have a good auto back version, so it's 1248 right now. Quickly save this as, and this will be in lesson 2, max 2, and save it up. Let's check out if we have an auto back with the door in. So if we go to my libraries, documents, 3D Studio Max, auto back, this is usually where they're kept. Let's find the most recent file. So again, it's 1248, so we actually have one at 1246. I wonder if we were already, yeah, we had already done the damage. Well, me. So we need to go a bit further back in time. That looks fine. Okay, crisis is averted. What we can actually do is just to keep all of the changes that we've done afterwards. Bear in mind this is called door. So if we go back into our save, we can go import, merge, and actually merge with that scene. And replace it, actually merge it with it. So here we go. So that is fine now. And we were able to save the change that we did to the inner wall. So now I'll quickly redo this. And just while I redo this, just a quick side note. While I'm doing these tutorials, I'm actually not going to edit out anytime that I stumble or I make a mistake, such as the one that I had already, because these ones will happen a lot while you work. I mean, you can be very proficient at 3D Studio Max and still make some of these mistakes. In this case, I made quite a few of them because I'm rushing to keep this tutorial as short as possible. I mean, ideally, I don't want my tutorials to go under 20 minutes, but I have a fear that this one has already gone way past that. But it will be good to see like what of some of the solutions are when you make a mistake like that. So in this case, I was able to save quite a bit of the work that done by quickly going to an AutoCad version of my scene file while still keeping this change by using the merge. So that was just a quick solution. It wasn't a perfect one. I still had to redo some of the work, but it wasn't that bad. So let's save this one. And something that I've been omitting to do throughout the course of this tutorial is actually save often. With 3D Studio Max, it might sometimes crash. You know, you might make a mistake such as this one. It's a good idea to save as often as you can, just to avoid this stuff. But let me know what you guys would prefer as well. Do you want me to keep all of this stuff in the tutorial, such as the mistakes and etc., or do you want me to cut them out just so that tutorials are shorter? So would you like short and precise, or slightly longer and with bugs in there, just so you can see how we can go, just how we can manage some of these. So these objects are no longer instant starting. These guys are, but this isn't. Let's just make it unique, just to be sure. Okay. So let's move this guy here. Oh, just the y-axis, please. The reason I go out of element mode while moving this around the scene is that if I just move the element, then the pivot won't move with it, so it will remain where it used to be, or it will get centered to what the bounding box of the object is overall. So basically, you will not be correct. It's just easier to do it this way, or you could just move the element and then recenter the pivot. Depends on whether you have actually purposefully placed your pivot and you would like it to remain where it was. Okay, so that's the basic frame in, and what we'll need to do is actually create these posts as well. These guys are not planned. Oh, that's why. So we can just make them planar again, this time on the x-axis. There we go. And this is where chamfer will come in useful. Let's just select these edges. We can loop them here, just because the edges are continuous, they actually loop around. So with those selected, let's keep an eye on here. If we chamfer them, they're 52, right? So they would need to be 25.5 to be exact. So there we go. Go into vertex mode, make sure they line up. And now we can bridge these faces. Okay, and now we'll create our actual windows in here. Now, you know, there's different windows that look differently. You can, their what's the word I'm looking for here? Their silhouette will be different, but I think I'll do the simplest windows possible in this case, just to make sure we don't run out of time. I don't think the windows themselves are going to open in Unity, at least I don't envision them doing that. Okay, so if this is the frame, this will be the actual the window inner frame. So we need to inset these further. Let's set their thickness now. So for the inner frame, they'll be slightly less thicker. That looks about right. For now, we'll we can adjust these in great detail in a bit. Let's inset these by what amount? Well, if that one's 52, let's do this one as 40, slightly smaller. It's okay, and delete them. Let's try this. Let's try bridging them without doing it face by face. So again, it might work, it might not. Let's see what result we get. It worked. Yay! Time saved. And we'll need the actual window panels in here now as well. What's another way to do this that I can show you as well? If we select these inner edges and we click ring, this will select them in the ring. So this is the opposite of loop. Loop would have selected them like this around this loop. Ring just selects the ones parallel to it, which is all our corners in this case. So now we can just connect them, and with the newly created line we can just chamfer them. Let's see, what thickness would our glass panel be? Let's say it's 5 millimeters. Well, actually, if we were to do double glazing, there would be 2 glass panels. So let's do that. Hit apply. Actually, apply and continue. We'll apply this chamfer modifier, and then apply another one to it immediately, so that we can chamfer these guys again. So there we go. So now we have the insets for where our glass panels should be, and all we need to do is actually, let's select these faces. There's a feature in 3D Studio Max from 2010 onwards, I believe, that allows you to do similar selections. I haven't found exactly the precise pattern that it follows, but sometimes it will give you the selection that you want to know. Let's try it. So if I go to let's see, is under graphite modeling tools? Yeah. If we go to select similar, this will try to mimic our current selection across everything that is active. So if I click that, it did, which is pretty awesome. Actually, so now I can hit delete and delete those faces, so that now I can bridge those. If we were to bridge these without deleting those faces, we would have bridging would create a new face on top of it, so we would have 2 faces overlapping where there shouldn't be any, actually. Let's try this again. Perfect. So now we can bridge these, and that will give us our object. Where am I looking for? There we go. Oh, here we go. So this is an example where bridge didn't work. Actually, let's just delete all of these, and we'll do this one, and then we'll copy it over. There we go. Okay, so that's all fine. Let's detach these, because these will need to be actual glass panels. Detach to element for now. So they will need to have their own edges. I'm missing something here. It took out that bit with it as well. Okay, so this is selected as well. Just deselect these inner faces. We have everything else that we need selected, I believe. So now if we detach it again, just tilt to element and move them out of place. Yeah, we have our glass panels. All of the faces here are missing, which is fine. We can go to border and bridge these guys. Bridge. We actually don't even need this information. We'll leave it here for now. I think I've gone the complicated way around it. We'll leave them here for now so that we can realign these guys precisely. Yeah, we can just cap these. But I could have just created boxes inside of this and drag them in place rather than using the actual geometry. But I guess this is a good workflow to know if you want to be super precise. It's just that in this particular case we didn't need to. No, can't do it. Now the reason it won't let me to select the faces that I want with snap in here is because obviously there's a face that's above everything else, and that's the one that's considering. So it won't give me the little move icon that I need, which is this one. So these need to be exactly here, and that's where they are. Okay. So now the glass panels are individual objects. Cool. Let's just isolate this for now, and also hide all of the geometry within the elements. So you can actually do that by clicking hide unselected. You hide something and then you hide anything that isn't unselected within the element itself. And we can just remove those edges because it's extra geometry that we just won't need. If you were just to hit backspace, that would remove them, but we'll leave the vertices in place, which is not what we want. So if we go back to edge mode, if you hit Control backspace, then that removes the edges and the vertices that were in there. So that gives us cleaner geometry. Now if we go into geometry mode, into element mode, we can unhide all. Sometimes this won't unhide your vertices though. So it did in this case, so we're good. Now the last thing that we need to do is actually just put these guys in the right place and then copy them over, and that'll be fine. Here right in the middle should be fine. Actually the hinge would need to be on the outside, so because they depending on the type of windows, if they have a hinge that is on the side, then the edge needs to be on the outside, otherwise there's no room for them to open. Same issue there. They're being covered by that top face. So actually I am just going to align them on the x-axis first. Snap is on, yeah. And then I'm going to align all of them on the y-axis. And there we have it. That should be our window. Let's just exit isolation mode. Center everything in the viewport. We can actually hide our plans layer. It's also a good idea just check that you didn't create anything on the actual plans layer, which we haven't this time. So that's absolutely fine. And that's it. Oh, we're missing the tiny window in the back. So we can pretty easily create that. Let's just copy this. Not as an instance this time, just as a copy of it, because they will be different structurally. Rotate it 90 degrees. Obviously we won't need these two inner windows, so delete those. And we won't need any of this geometry, so delete that. And all we're left with is these guys, which we can easily cap And there you go. Let's recenter the pivot. And now we can move this in place. And make it fit. I've disabled this viewport. I believe I've done that by pressing D. Yeah, that's why I didn't update while I was moving stuff in here. Okay, that looks right. I think one last thing to do on the windows is to actually chamfer some of these interfaces. Yeah, I think we should do that. So let's select all of the windows. Let's isolate them. And now we could apply an Edit Poly modifier and select all of them at once, but it doesn't really matter. We can just do them. Do this object first and then do the other window. Let's just maximize this viewport. Which faces do we want to chamfer? Well, probably all of these guys. They did loop nicely. Yeah. Loop. Yeah, worked. So obviously we'll want the back faces. Actually, we wouldn't want these ones on the outside because we don't even see these. Because our camera, I imagine, in our final scene in Unity is going to actually be placed inside the room, so we won't see those outside edges. So let's just loop these guys and then just apply a quick chamfer to them. 2 millimeters, I believe, is what we did previously. So yeah, that looks fine. And again, this gives us a nice gap here so that we can differentiate between the edges a bit better and makes it look nicer overall. We can apply a smooth modifier now. Auto smooth should work just fine. And do the same here. Cool, and that's that. And that's window 1. That's just window, so let's call this window 02, window 001. Same with the doors. This should be 001. Okay, this should be 002 and 003. And let's save. Okay. Perhaps the door frame should extrude to cover this, but I decided we'll thin this out anyway. I'll just do that in the next tutorial. And obviously this should go all the way to here, which is, yeah, I deleted those bits, so that's fine. Yeah, everything else looks nice. We already have a room, guys, so there we go. Progress has been made. So I think that concludes this lesson. Thanks for bearing with me. I think this tutorial has again been slightly longer than I had anticipated. I do have a bit of a cold as well, so I'm sure that didn't help. And let me know what your opinion is on keeping mistakes in the tutorial or just cutting them out. Let me know if you want to see me struggle with figuring out why stuff isn't working as it should. Okay, well, until next time, you guys have a nice day. Please leave your comments below, and I'll see you again soon.